So, one of the biggest news items over the past week since Revelation came out, because, tomorrow's going to make a week since the show debuted on Netflix, all 5 episodes, is basically the whole situation with Kevin Smith. And, Kevin Smith basically has been going back and forth lately ever since the show debuted. I mean, he's been backtracking on what he says. He's apologizing to people and, like Neon and Geeky of Clownfish TV. He's been, apologizing for some of the things he said, for marketing and promoting the show for what it wasn't, or what it didn't turn out to be. And on top of that, he's also still for tracking, as I once called it, where he's still kind of, pouring gasoline onto the fire. He's still calling out fans, telling them to grow the F up. And it's gotten to a point now that, even people that have worked with Kevin Smith, people that have, collabed with him, co-written stuff with him, starred in projects with him, or currently working on or have worked on projects, with him in the past and present, some of them have come out recently and, a week after this whole debacle, and, have basically asked the question as to why. Why Kevin Smith, didn't say no. And it's not just, a question of why are you acting like this? This is not you. But mainly it's a question of why didn't Kevin Smith say no? And it's not just a question they're asking, but it's a question a lot of us, with more information coming out and everything, it's a question a lot of us are asking, like, why didn't Kevin Smith say no to a lot of these ideas that Ted Biaselli, who is the director of Netflix original programming and is supposedly one of the OG Masters of the Universe fans, who's supposed to represent us, if you will, or represent fans that grew up at that time frame with the original show. Why didn't he say no to some of his suggestions or some of his ideas? Knowing, no matter how much, he tries to deny it, knowing that the kind of backlash it could get. I mean, one thing a lot of people point out is, Kevin Smith is the guy that basically called out Disney and Lucasfilms and Rian Johnson for doing what they did with Star Wars, in The Last Jedi, and I'm sure with The Rise of Skywalker. And the fact is, people are saying you're doing the exact same thing. You're doing what Rian Johnson did. You're trying to justify something, for what it was and what it was not promoted to be. And that's why a lot of people are asking the question as to, why? Why didn't he just say no to some of these ideas by Ted Biaselli? I mean, if you're going to pay me to be, credited for the creation or the revival of a classic IP, and, you're going to have me come out and promote it as a direct sequel to that IP or a spiritual sequel to that IP. If you're going to have me do that, or a straight continuation to that IP, if you're going to have me do that, you're going to pay me money and credit me, with that revival, as well as allow me to be the director, basically the guy that has creative control, then, I should have some kind of say. I should be able to say yes and no to a lot of things. And that's the one thing a lot of people look at Kevin Smith as right now. It's like, you're given the ball, you're given the money, and you're given the ball to run with and score multiple times with. And, yet you fumbled, at each and every opportunity. And those opportunities, are basically the fact that, he allowed, the likes of Ted Biaselli to influence how the show would go. Instead of taking Ted aside and saying, something along the lines of, Ted, I appreciate your ideas, I think they're great. If it was an original show, if it was original IP done today, but this is a direct sequel. This is a straight continuation of an original IP, of an IP from the 80s, a classic IP from the 80s. So I don't think that's going to work, especially if we're trying to, market it towards longtime OG fans of Masters of the Universe, of He-Man. So, so if I was Kevin Smith, I would, put my foot down. Or I would have put my foot down when it came to a lot of those decisions. And that's what a lot of people are asking, not just those that have worked with Kevin Smith, but fans in general now that more information keeps coming out. Like, why didn't he just say no? Why didn't he just say, Ted, I respect you for who you are. I appreciate you giving me this chance. But since I'm the one that's, being credited, since I'm the one that's been given the ball and allowed to run with it, let me do it the way, I know it should be done. Let me do it in a way that by researching a little bit more or listening to what you've had to say about it, let me do it in a way that I know the fans of the OG show would want it. Not in a way that's going to push a political agenda of empowerment for women or, race swapping characters. I mean, that could be exception. That could be the exception. I'm pretty sure a lot of us would be okay with that. But still, it's like, if I'm Kevin Smith, I just tell him, look, let me be the one that makes the calls. I mean, I'll listen to what you have to say about it, what I need to know about it, but let me do it, in a way that stays true to that original format or that original continuity, and nothing's really changed as much. Like I said in one video, if they wanted to, they could tweak characters' personalities here and there, and that's fine. But don't go full on crazy or overboard with it. And I think, in a way, as crazy as it sounds, hearing from what some people like this Chris guy on the Midnight's Edge morning podcast the other day had to say, who knows Kevin Smith, has worked with Kevin Smith and stuff, and basically generally believes he's a good guy. From the way he describes him, Kevin's the kind of person that would have, done that if, not, given these suggestions by Ted, if you will, to put into the show, that he would have been the kind of guy that probably would have given us something close to the original. Like I said, maybe a few tweaks here and there, but not totally overboard. And again, that's the one thing when fans look at Masters of the Universe Revelation and they see what's happened to Teela, they see what's happened to Evil Lynn, they see what's happened to, King Randor, they see how things are positioned and all that. And to them it's like, why are we getting this instead of what we were promised? And a lot of people point towards what Kevin Smith sarcastically said to Clownfish TV and others, that hey, I could have used these ideas before we locked down the scripts. Right there, that kind of tells a lot of people that maybe, and it kind of told the Chris guy that knows Kevin very well, it kind of told them that maybe Kevin knew what was about to happen and afterwards tried to deny it and everything. But yeah, if I'm somebody like Kevin Smith and I'm given, the ball and allowed to run with it, thus given creative control to, and being credited for a revival or continuation of an original classic IP, then I should be able to be the one that has the final say. I should be the one that's able to, say, okay, we're going to do this, but we're not going to do that. Like, again, as I mentioned, if I was Kevin Smith, I would have taken Ted Biaselli aside and said, look, I appreciate your ideas, they sound great. If we were working on something new and original, but this is not, something new and original, it's a classic IP that we're continuing, with this series, and we need to keep it, dedicated, we need to keep it true to the original. And I think honestly, that's what Kevin Smith should have done. And a lot of people do agree with that. Not just, fans in general with more information coming out, but now that you have, people that have worked with Kevin coming out, worked with Kevin, know Kevin, and all that, coming out and basically kind of agreeing, in a sense, you know, in some kind of way. And then you have things like Screen Rant and IGN and even Variety, you know, a week after or a couple of days after coming out and, you know, asking why it's controversial, the series that is, and then pointing out maybe some of the main reasons. You know, again, this all leads to that question of why Kevin Smith just didn't say no to Ted when it came to some of these decisions. And I think, honestly, if he would have done that, I think maybe, you know, we wouldn't be in where we're at right now. Or at least, even if we were gonna get this, which we did, this version of Revelation, which is totally different than what we were promised, then if I'm Kevin Smith, I would have at least gone to Ted and said, look, you want me to go out there and market this show, you know, coming to Netflix and everything, that's fine. But let me market it as what as to what they're going to see. In other words, if I was Kevin Smith, if I couldn't have a final say, even though I should, with all the, you know, credit that I'm getting, all the money I'm being paid, you know, and allowed to write some episodes, to being the main director and all that, the person behind it, that even if I couldn't have a true final say, you know, at least let me go out and basically admit to the world and promote to the world and to fans that this is going to be a He-Man that in spirit is similar, you know, in style, if not design, character design and everything, to the original, but it's going to be totally different. That things are going to go a certain way, you know, like with characters and certain, you know, agendas, you know, world world agendas are going to be talked about, if not addressed in some manner, shape or form. So yeah, you know, but yeah, when you really think about it, you know, it's an interesting question to ask of why Kevin Smith didn't say no to some of Ted Biaselli's suggestions or decisions when it came to this show. Well, but let me know what you guys think. Comment down below. I'd love to hear from each and every one of you. Let me know what your thoughts are on the live chat during the premiere. Sorry if I stumbled and rambled and was repetitive. I currently have this going so I can keep an eye on what's happening, you know, because, you know, my mom's eating dinner right now in the living room and trying to take an opportunity to do this after I ate my dinner. But you know how that is. Like, you've heard what I've had to say about that before. But anyway, though, guys, let me know what your thoughts are overall on this video and this topic in the comment section, as well as on the live chat during the premiere. And I will talk to y'all later.